Hi there, welcome along to Transfer Talk as Manchester City look to add to their squad. Could one of Europe's most informed players be joining the Premier League champions? Como become the latest team to show their desire to sign Marcus Rashford. Where will he end up though? Arsenal could also be busy, but is a forward high on their priority list? Italian football expert Mina Uzuki has the latest on reports linking them with Dusan Vlahovic. And we'll hear from West Ham's new boss, Graham Potter. Will he be able to add to his squad? Afternoon, everyone. Afternoon once again. Sam Obaseki, Flex, and to Snapman Dave. We've already had a few interesting develops, haven't we, throughout the day today? And let's get straight to one of them because Manchester City have told Eintracht Frankfurt that they would like to sign Omar Marmoush immediately. Eintracht are currently demanding around £67 million. We're hearing that City more keen to obviously spend less than that, around about 42 to £50 million if possible. We've said, Flex, that Marmoush can play across the forward line. He can play left, he can play right, he can play number 10, he could even play through the middle if you want him to. Where do you think Man City might be thinking they could use him best?
They need a multifunctional forward. I mean, you look at the fact that Alvarez has gone in the positions he used to take up, either playing instead of Haaland or just off Haaland. So Marmoush can definitely do that. I think in wide areas, they have such variety in Savino and Doku. And Jack Grealish is a different type of midfielder who's struggling for form right now. So we could easily occupy any of those positions as well. So it's something that, with the way he's playing as well, how devastating he is on the counter, which is very interesting to look at how City get their chances, which is suffocating a lot of teams. And you know, being on the front foot, not so much space in behind. So that'll be a big adjustment for Omar Marmoush. But definitely can play across a variety of positions for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola's team, which is actually what makes him so appealing. I think he can easily play as part of that midfield just off of Haaland, no problem with that. Next to De Bruyne, could play with 2/8s easily. I think it's a really good move for him. He's in the form of his life. And definitely could occupy many positions for Manchester City.
It's definitely going to be a great move for him and Manchester City, of course, because they're going to get a player that's in form and, you know, he's scoring goals, he's getting assists as well, but he plays majority of the time up front. So, and he's played a few games on the left, a few games on the right, and yes, like you said, multifunctional, but going into a Manchester City side, the way they play their wide men is very different to every other team in Europe. So I'm interested to see if he does come, how long it's going to take for him to get into the side and get things going, because we've seen wingers in the past, they struggle sometimes to start scoring.
Not a guarantee, is it?
Exactly.
I mean, look at Grealish. Is this, Dave, though, you know, when you look at where the goals have come from for Manchester City this year, is this an admission that they've become too reliant on Erling Haaland?
I think it has to be, right? I think last season we saw Phil Foden take a lot of shots. He was quite close at the end of the season in terms of shots taken for City, and also the goals came, the assists came. This season, Gvardiol is the second top scorer with 4 goals in the Premier League. Behind that is Kovacic. That is a left-back and a centre-back. Yeah. Where are your attacking midfielders? Where are your wingers that are contributing in that sense? So when you look at someone like Omar Marmoush, it's going to be interesting, as you mentioned, to see where he fits in. I think it's got to be in this sort of attacking midfield, second striker position. You look at Frankfurt, they had around 49% of the ball this season in terms of possession. That's going to be a big change for him. But he's got the quality. What I like about him as well, we spoke about his goal scoring, very clean, getting shots away, but also the creativity. He's quite good when he drifts out wide left from a striking position for Frankfurt or attacking the inside right channel that we see Kevin De Bruyne, but he's basically, you know, that's his position, right? But City haven't been good in that area. So having a forward that can spin him there, that's got a good ability to create and get crosses away for his teammates, it's only going to improve City's attack. He's been directly involved in 20 Bundesliga goals this season, equating to 57% of their total goals in the competition. So it's going to be big.
Yeah, no, it is. We will keep you across that one, of course. Manchester City have also approached Palmeiras over a deal for Vitor Reis. Interest is in the early stages, but City want to sign the talented 18-year-old centre-back. Palmeiras are understood to be hopeful of a fee of around £33.5 to £40 million for him. This is what South American football expert Tim Vickery told us yesterday.
I don't think he's anywhere near Premier League ready at the moment. He's classy. On Palmeiras have been producing a lot of good players recently. Most of them attackers. He's a centre-back, very classy, but he needs to fill out physically. I think if you were to put him in the Premier League at the moment, he would really be bullied. So perhaps it serves everyone's interests for him to stay a little bit longer in Brazilian football. But Palmeiras reluctant to sell before that Club World Cup.
He wasn't exactly effusive of his praise there, was he? He was a slight word of concern there about the age, about the size. He thinks he needs to fill out a little bit. You've been keeping a bit of an eye on him, Dave. Does this sound like a little bit of a risk for Manchester City? Is this one for the future more than the present?
It's definitely one for the future for sure, but Victor Hayes, in terms of when you look at young centre-backs, the big thing that I try and look for that's a difference to other players is the calmness. Calm in the duel, calm on the ball, calm in possession. City want a player that can do all that can defend the wide areas. But that Copa Libertadores final against Botafogo was very, very impressive in terms of...
The fact that he's even played in a Copa Libertadores final at the age of 18 is very impressive.
Says a lot.
Yeah. So that definitely says a lot. You know, he played against Igor Jesus, who's been linked with a move to the Premier League as well. But in terms of those statistics, won 9 of his 14 aerial duels, made 4 clearances, 3 interceptions, and won 3 out of his 3 tackles. He just went into all those duels very, very calm, knowing they can win the ball. Yes, I agree with Tim, he needs to fill out, and physically, that's the next step in his career. But raw materials-wise, this could be massive for Manchester City.
I just can't remember what it was like to need to fill out. It was a long time ago, wasn't it? It's the opposite. It's the opposite these days, sadly.
Try playing centre half, you find out.
Yeah, exactly. Right, Como have entered the race for Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford. That's according to Sky Italy. AC Milan also want him, and they're prepared to give him a leading role with the club. That is what we are hearing, they told his representatives. This could be interesting, couldn't it, Sam? Are we possibly heading towards a situation where Como, for example, have said that money's not an issue? So it sounds like they would be able to pay Marcus Rashford's wages. AC Milan, though, saying probably only half of his wages we can afford. Might we be heading to a situation where the club wants him to go to one place and the player wants to go somewhere else?
It could get to that point, but I feel like because the club and the player have been so vocal about the situation, they're going to have to collaborate on the best solution for all parties, because at the end of the day, Rashford has talked about, wanting or thinking of other situations where he can go and play football. Amrim's talked about what he desires from his forwards in his system. And I think if they do get to that point and Rashford does stay, you're going to see the headlines and the stories of Rashford not in the team, and it's going to be constant. And Amrim doesn't want that in his first season, where there's still so much for them to achieve, and he's in a position where there's still so many other stories going on at United anyway.
Yeah. This Como thing is interesting, isn't it? Managed by Cesc Fabregas, got a lot of money at the moment. They've got into Serie A, but they are struggling. They're 16th at the moment, just a point or 2 off relegation. Do you think Marcus Rashford really wants to go from Manchester United into a relegation battle in Italy? Do you think that could happen?
I mean, look, Dave spoke about it earlier in jest. I know Manchester United have been at the wrong end of the table, so you could argue it's swapping one battle for another. But I can't see that, to be honest with you. I think Marcus Rashford at this stage of his career, having been a staple point of Manchester United and a lot of the club being built around him as the face of it, alongside Bruno Fernandes, I cannot see him wanting to go, with all due respect, to that area of Serie A. I could see him wanting to challenge for Scudetto. I can see him wanting to play for one of the bigger clubs, i.e. AC Milan. I think that would be really attractive to Rashford and his camp. And he wants to get back into the England squad as well. And I think if he's operating at a level that's towards the bottom end of Serie A, that's really difficult for Thomas Tuchel to start having a look at him and to get in there. So with these aspirations, if you join them all up, he needs to be playing regularly at the top end of one of Europe's top 5 leagues, and he has a chance to do that at AC Milan. So I think the Como situation is a nice story with, Cesc Fabregas and what would it look like. Very nice place. But I just can't see that as being the right move for Marcus Rashford now. But even going to AC Milan, listen, Rafael Leao is no slouch. There's positions there for him, I understand, but he's going to have to go and work really hard to get into that team. Even if they want him as part of a project, it's not a foregone conclusion. He has to go, get his head down, get his confidence back, and start smiling again and enjoying his football.
A couple of other lines from Manchester United I want to just go through. First of all, Amad Diallo. We mentioned Flex, didn't we, on Monday, that actually he was one of those players who, bizarrely, was out of contract in the summer. Well, they are close to announcing a contract extension for Amad Diallo. That's following an agreement on a new deal. This current deal did end this summer. Given his form, is this something that is going to be really good with the fans? It's going to play well with the fans?
Yeah, absolutely. He's been Man United's best player this season. I think he's been so consistent, either playing as a right wing-back or in attacking midfield in recent weeks. First player in the last decade to score away at both Liverpool and Manchester City. On top of that, in terms of goal involvements this season in the Premier League, 9 more than all the United wingers combined. But then also you look at the impact under Ruben Amorim. So far, been directly involved in 8 goals, 1 penalty, 2 goals and 5 assists. The impact is there, and the fluidity of him as a footballer is just great to watch. Yeah. And that's the type of player that Man United do need right now. Someone that can create something out of nothing, something that's special, something that's exciting, get you off your seat.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, Randall Kolo Muani kind of fits that bill, doesn't he? I know you guys spoke about him yesterday in relation to Tottenham, who are interested, but Manchester United also potentially interested. They've made inquiries about the PSG forward. Where would he fit into the United system? This 3 at the back, 2 forwards behind the striker. How would he fit into that for Man United?
I'm not sure he does, you know. I think when I look at Manchester United and I look at their current side, we're already seeing Rasmus Højlund and Xerxes already struggling to really solidify themselves as the starting strikers. And I think Muani, with his current form, would be another player. He's quite young. It will take him a few months to get used to the Premier League, but also get used to Amorim's system. And I think coming from a PSG where he scored 2 goals in 14 games, hasn't really found himself there. At Frankfurt, he was great. And if he was making that move after Frankfurt, then I would say, yeah, this would be a great time. But I think he needs a move like maybe a Spurs or a different team where, you know, he gets the time to really find himself again. And I don't think United's that place for him.
I think it's massive in terms of the where he's gone. That's really, really big. You know, at Frankfurt, he was so confident, scoring over his expected goals, but both his seasons been in Paris, underperforming in terms of shots and putting the ball in the back of the net. Tactically would work if it was a Frankfurt system, if it was then. One of the things I really like about him is he's not only a goal scorer, very, very creative, 17 assists in the last 3 seasons, and strikers in European football, only Ollie Watkins has created more goals for his teammates. So you've got that duality, he scores, he creates, but is it the right guy right now? Manchester United need wing-backs. That's the position they need to recruit for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The wing-backs are so key, but I also think Man United need to be really careful as well as creative in this transfer window.
Yep.
We know the constraints with PSR. We know that, you know, United are needing to move bodies on before bringing somebody in, but also Manchester United can't panic. They're at the wrong end of the Premier League table. This is a long process with Ruben Amorim that's going to take a lot of patience. If, because Manchester United at the wrong end of the table now, they start trying to get long-term solutions in this window, it's very difficult to do that. So I think they need to get creative with maybe loans until the end of the season, maybe with some players moving the other way. There's a lot of discrepancies with wages. It's really difficult for Manchester United to move players on. So I just think they need to exercise an element of calm, but also a level of creativity to help Amorim have some players more suited to his style. And like you said there, Dave, the wing-backs are so essential. You know, Jeremy Carragher has highlighted why they've struggled. That's really where Man United, I think, need to start.
And just one more with Manchester United before we move on. There's some interesting reports in some of the news outlets in the last couple of days about Alejandro Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo. We have since found out that Manchester United don't want to sell, but no one is untouchable, is what we have been told by a source at Manchester United. That's interesting, isn't it? Those words, they obviously don't want to sell the homegrown assets, but the fact that no one is untouchable, does that suggest that if someone comes in with a very big offer, 50, 60 million, I don't know what it is, for Kobbie Mainoo or for Alejandro Garnacho, that it would be entertained?
I think they're 2 different positions in a sense. I think Kobbie Mainoo is indispensable in a sense. Central midfield, ball playing, ranks in the top 2% of midfielders in the Premier League for carries and tackles won. He's got a really unique profile. It's difficult to find that player. United have been looking since, Michael Carrick, Paul Scholes in midfield for that player. So I think he's in a different bracket to Garnacho in a sense of Garnacho's profile. You could potentially look and get someone there. So that being said, would I want Garnacho to leave Manchester United? Absolutely not. But this is maybe what's happened over the years in the position United are at, that they're sat 13th in the Premier League, and no one's untouchable if you're 13th in the Premier League, right? Yeah. You've got to grow.
Absolutely. I agree. I think when you see the words and you see some of the reports as maybe a Manchester United fan, you can be taken aback and thinking, oh my goodness, they're trying to sell our best assets. And I don't believe that's right. I think it's quite clever as well, because if you think about it, every player should have their price when a team is underperforming and they're not actively trying to sell these players. But if a huge offer came in for someone like Alejandro Garnacho, who's, look, the system that Ruben Amorim wants to play might give him a little bit of an issue, and you could take that 50, 60 odd million pounds, let's per se, reinvest that straight into the squad as 100% profit and go and get someone ready-made for Ruben Amorim's positions in the 10s, then that would be more beneficial for Manchester United in this image. So I'm not, as a United fan, I'm not overly worried about that. I just think that, Kobbie Mainoo especially, got 3 years left on his deal. There's no trouble.
Calm. Flex says keep
Just need a little bit of calm around.
Keep calm, all of you Manchester United fans. Right, we've got some news into us from the Championship. Sunderland have an agreement in place with Roma for Enzo Lefebvre. The player is preparing to travel to the northeast after Sunderland struck a loan with an option to buy in the summer. He only signed for Roma from Rennes last summer for £19 million. Next, we're getting around the country, particularly to the Midlands. We're going to be live to Aston Villa and to Nottingham Forest. Find out what both of those sides might be doing in the transfer market. Stay with us.
Well, I hope you're enjoying Transfer Talk on Sky Sports News. Big weekend of boxing as Callum Simpson defends his British and Commonwealth titles against Steed Woodall. And Caroline Dubois makes the first defence of her world title against Jessica Kamara. It's press conference day here in Sheffield. Join us across our social media platforms from 1 o'clock.
Thank you very much, Andy. Let's get to Aston Villa then, who punched above their weight last season in the Premier League, didn't they? Kirsty Edwards will be speaking to Unai Emery later today afternoon. Kirsty, looks like there could be several outgoings for Villa, and one of those is Jaden Philogene.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is edging ever closer, isn't it? We know he's having his medical at Ipswich today. Bit of a strange one because, of course, he only returned back to Villa in the summer from Hull City. But I think, you know, things haven't worked out on both fronts, both for the player. He hasn't been getting the game time that he would have wanted. He did start in the Champions League against Bayern Munich, but only had a couple of starts in the Premier League. And I think we heard from Unai Emery last week about him, and I think he felt that his adaptation to his system, although he feels he's a player with a lot of potential, I don't think he feels like he's adapted to the system here as quickly as he would have hoped. So it's a move, I think, that suits all parties. Ipswich wanted to sign him in the summer, of course, so they now get their man, it seems, and it looks to be a fee of over £20 million, so Villa could well make a profit as well. Diego Carlos, another player we could see departing from here. Fenerbahce continues to be what looks like the destination. There's been a fee of £10 million muted in regards to him. Incomings-wise, certainly I think Unai Emery looking to add some versatility, some pace to his attack, and that could come in the shape of the former Arsenal academy player Donyell Marlon. Currently, of course, at Borussia Dortmund. He scored in their last game in the Bundesliga against Wolfsburg. He's got 5 goals in 20 appearances this season. Altogether scored 39 in 131 appearances from them. We heard from Sky Germany yesterday. I think Dortmund looking, they say, for over £16.5 million. So talks ongoing with that one, but certainly one to keep an eye on. Plenty of incomings, plenty of outgoings to talk to Unai Emery about today. Also the team news as well, because John McGinn picked up that hamstring injury in that game against Leicester last weekend as well. So that's a bit of a blow. We'll see just how long he may be out for. It was talked about anything between 2 and 5 weeks with him. And of course, they're gearing up to be the first side to face Graham Potter's West Ham in the FA Cup tomorrow night. I shall be there in the cold. Looking forward to that one and looking forward to speaking to Unai Emery. You can hear from him after 2 o'clock today.
Look forward to it. Looks like they might be busy, Aston Villa, this January. Thank you, Kirsty. Right, as Kirsty mentioned there, they've got a few injuries now. Aston Villa, all of a sudden, McGinn's just got injured too. Pau Torres is out. When you look at those injuries, they've got a big 5 months coming up. Doing well in the Champions League. They want to progress in that, and they want to keep pushing for top 4 as well, which they're still in contention. Looking at the squad, do you think it really could do with freshening up in Jan?
Yeah, I think so in a couple of areas. I don't think anything that would be out of Aston Villa's strategy under Unai Emery. They've been really, really disciplined in that and not just buying players for the sake of buying players. But I think a forward in Donyell Marlon would definitely make sense. You look at them losing Diaby, and it hasn't quite worked out with Philogene as well. So there's a lot of pressure on Leon Bailey to deliver, and he's had a mixture through bad form and injury this season, hasn't quite got it, got his first goal not too long ago. So hopefully he can kick on, but definitely some reinforcements in that area. And if you're looking at the back as well, a right back, I think would be of use to Aston Villa as well, with Matty Cash only recognised.
He's the only recognised
one. Konsa can play there, but that's not ideal. So probably someone who could play right back and centre back as well. A bit of a multitude of positions, but I think a couple of players for Aston Villa at this stage of the season, when they've managed to come out of that blip, when they sort of, I think, had like 1 win in 8, that was a tough period for them. Come out of that, now they're sort of where or thereabouts for challenging for the top 4, which is where they want to be, as well as in a really good position in the Champions League.
Yeah. We always hear about how difficult it is to play in the Premier League to try and keep up that consistency to get top 4. but then, you know, do well in Europe. We saw it with Newcastle a few years ago. And I think the signings of like Daniel Marlin, I think those are the players that they need to go for. Players that are ready to come into the side, that have played in Europe before, don't mind being in teams that there is competition and you know, okay, cool, if I don't have a good few games, I might get benched, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to get another opportunity. So I think Unai Emery knows he's well versed in Europe. He knows what it takes to get top four and to even win the trophy. So definitely signings of those ilk.
OK, well, Villa, of course, got into the top four last year. Nottingham Forest are in the top four at the moment. Rob Jones is in Nottingham. He will be speaking to Nuno Espirito Santo shortly. Hello, Rob. What's on the agenda really for Forest in this January? Is it keeping hold of key players and sorting contract situations? Are those really the focus points for them?
Afternoon, Matt. Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to see a very different transfer window from Nottingham Forest than we've seen since they returned to the Premier League. There's been a lot of times where they've seemingly focused on quantity rather than quality, and on occasions that's been needed because of losing so many loan players when they were first promoted to the Premier League. But it did feel really pertinent a couple of weeks ago hearing Nuno Espirito Santo saying, yeah, the big focus is keeping hold of key players, keeping hold of this squad that is going so well at the moment, that have won 6 league games in a row in the same division for the first time since the 1966-67 season. So there are maybe 3 players to focus on there. Chris Wood, the top scorer, being one of them, who has been so brilliant since Nuno Espirito Santo arrived. 23 Premier League goals since that change in management last season. He's into the final 6 months of his contract. You would think that the sticking point at the moment is the length of that contract. Chris Wood turned 33 in December. He's spoken this season about how he wants to go on playing into his late 30s. My hunch would be that he would be looking for a longer initial term, and that Nottingham Forest are maybe starting it 1 year with the option to trigger further years. There are 2 other contracts to talk about in defence. Nottingham Forest with 9 clean sheets this season, more than anyone else in the Premier League. Only Arsenal and Liverpool have conceded fewer goals. Ola Aina has started every single Premier League game for Nottingham Forest. He too is into the final 6 months of his contract. It's been interesting with Aina, a beacon of consistency at either right or left back. Initially signed 1 year. Forest triggered a further year at the end of last season. They can do the same, but are also at the same time working on a slightly longer term contract. And then the other player to look at is Murillo. There's hardly been any changes in that back four for Forest. The 2 centre-halves, Murillo and Nikola Milenkovic, a summer arrival from Fiorentina, have been fantastic for Nottingham Forest this season. Both represent great value for money. At the moment, he's got a contract, Murillo, the young Brazilian, until 2028. So there is no great rush, but we do understand that significant progress has been made in agreeing new terms with the Brazilian. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, Matt, that Nottingham Forest don't at the moment need to go out and buy 4 or 5 new players as they might have done in January's gone by. And I think Nuno is keen to keep this group that is going so well coming at the moment. The other, I guess, negotiation point for Nottingham Forest is that you can sell this to players, that there is a real option that Nottingham Forest could be playing in the Champions League come next season, and maybe even if they can beat Liverpool, who are their next visitors here in the Premier League on Tuesday night, that Nottingham Forest might be in a title race. But before that, an FA Cup third-round tie against Luton. I'm sure Nuno will be keen to focus on that. And a real sliding doors fixture. It wasn't so long ago that these were the 2 teams fighting to stay in the Premier League last season. Luton went down and are now towards the bottom of the Championship, whereas Nottingham Forest have gone from strength to strength.
They certainly have. Thanks very much, Rob. Oh, I love the framing of that live as well, with all the red seats and the sign there. That did it for me, let me tell you. In terms of Forest, if they do, I mean, we've seen what they've done in the last 2-3 windows. They've gone, bananas, right? And they've just gone out and got player here, player there. If they went and did that again, or even brought in 4 players, is there a danger, because they're playing so well, that it could just upset the apple cart?
Yeah, for sure. Nuno knows it. He said it so many times. Every time he's questioned about his team and bringing in signings, he says that he just wants to keep this team settled. He knows how well they're doing, and they're not here by fluke. They're doing so well. In all of the big games that they've played, they've been dominant, they're scoring goals, defensively durable, their midfield is working well together. So when you look at players that are going to come into the team, you don't want anyone to upset that environment, because, like Rob said, they are 1 or 2 wins away from being in the title race, and no one will question it because they belong in that position. But even when you look at their bench, they've got players like James Ward-Prowse, Awoniyi, who was a big player for them a few seasons ago, to come in and try and stake a claim. So I don't think any player coming into that environment will they could add to it, but I think the quality has to be of the level that they're already producing.
OK, right. Stay with us because we've got loads still to come. We're going to be looking at Arsenal and who they could possibly add to their forward line. We will also be with Leeds United. Will the Championship leaders be adding to their squad? Stay tuned.